At the entrance ceremony, a special magic orb displays one's magical affinity. For the first student, it says fire. For the second student it says wood. When you touch it, the word creation appears, but no one has ever heard of that before. Today's the day. The choosing, they call it. Once people reach the age of 18 they are to approach the choosing orb in the archive of magic and place their hands upon it to learn their magical specialty. My father's magical specialty is wind. He commands the air like that of a hurricane. My mother, ice. She can freeze the entire ocean if she so chooses. My older sister, rock. She made a mountain for her and her boyfriend so that they could have some alone time just a few weeks ago. And now, it is my turn. I stand among several other people my age. We all wear our ceremonial blue robes and gaze upon the podium where the orb sits. As I stare, I cannot help listening to my peers' murmurs. My brother had rubber magic. I bet I'll get something similar. Someone nearby declares. I hope I have fire magic so I can work with my dad. That'd be great. Another person whispers. Suddenly, silence begins to loom over the crowd. 10 a.m. It is time. The orb begins to rise from its pedestal, its striking purple glowing from deep within. A voice erupts from the sphere. I am the choosing orb. It bellows. Come to me, progeny, and discover yourselves. And with that, the orb descended back down to its cushioned space. Those of us that were waiting looked between each other awkwardly before an archivist began to call out each of our names. Magnus, Stephen. He shouts. A meek-looking boy steps forward, terror in his eyes. Place your hands upon the orb. The archivist commands, motioning with his hand while he speaks. The boy follows the instructions, grasping the orb firmly and staring into the deep purple. For a moment, all was quiet, but suddenly the purple transformed into black and then green, then a rich amber. The colors flowed back and forth, like waves of the ocean, before they slowly calmed into their mixture. Fire! The orb declared. The boy looked shocked, but then a large toothy grin grew on his face. He released the orb, gave a flourish of his hand to shoot out a plume of blue and orange flames. The heat of his fire caused the crowd to gasp and applaud. Unlike how he arrived, the boy now stepped away from the podium with a pep in his step. The names continued, the numbers dwindled. Fire, ice, water, air, rock, and even sludge had been called. Brilliant colors erupted from the orb with each hand that was placed upon it. I gazed with wonder, until finally. Krellis, Patron. The archivist called. I didn't even realize my own legs had begun to move until I was already at the podium. I stared into the purple sphere. Images of brilliant colors flashed in my mind. My father, my mother, my sister, they all remained within my thoughts. Slowly, I placed my fingers upon the orb. The hard, cool surface sent a slight shock through my system. Yet as soon as I felt the sensation of the orb reach my fingertips, I found myself transported to another place. A dark place. A clear place. A space of nothing. I could not tell you for how long I stood. In the space, time eluded me. At the edge of my mind, I heard a voice. Interesting. Quite interesting indeed, it whispered. Normally I see fields of green, or rivers of blue. In your mind, however, I see nothing. What do you think that means? It asked. I took a moment to find my voice, but when it finally appeared, a word emerged from my lips. Blank. The voice in my mind responded. Blank, you say? Like you have no magic to speak of? No, I do not think that is the case. I think this is far more than that. I think you should look at this so-called blank with a new perspective. What do you mean? I asked, but my question was met with only silence. I stood alone in this blank space once more, but now my thoughts focused on the words of the being in my mind. A new perspective, I murmured. I reached out my hand, as if to touch the darkness, and realized what stood before me. A canvas. I uttered. Ah. Yes. How intriguing. The voice cackled. My vision faded, but just as quickly as it left me, I found my sight placed back upon the orb with my fingertips still upon it. Not even a moment had passed. Creation. The orb announced. I felt a surge of power within me as these words echoed. The crowd looked upon me, concern crossing their faces. Whispers began. I've never heard of that power. What kind of magic is creation? The people waited with bated breath. The tension could be cut with a knife. But what could I create? What are the limitations of my magic? I've never even cast a spell before. How do I do it? I closed my eyes. I searched, deep within the archives of my memory, and remembered a creature from an old story. Once this vision was clear within my mind, I took a deep breath, opened my eyes, and gave a flourish of my hand. Appearing in the center of the room, with scales as red as blood, stood a dragon. I shuddered. The creature I had created looked upon the people in the crowd, filled its lungs with air, spread its wings as much as it could. And it roared.